spring. But we'll be the ones that kind of lead in this webinar. And at the end, we're going to obviously have an awesome giveaway. That's what we're going to do. So the next thing, if we want to kind of go over, um, is what Sketchy is. Now, obviously, we're here. This is sponsored by Sketchy, of course. We love Sketchy, but I don't think Noel and I would do this on the middle of rotations and whatnot unless we actually wanted to and cared about Sketchy. And so this photo says it all. This is like one of the original Sketchy sketches. It turns literally what it says, tough medical concepts into engaging narrated visual stories. So the way this was started was with microbiology, which has a bunch of funky names. They all have different things, gram-positive cocci, gram-negative rods, all these type of things that you would never be able to remember if you just read it in a textbook 100 times. Maybe you would for the exam, but you wouldn't remember it long term. Now, I can tell you right now, I watched this sketch 2 years ago, and I can already tell you this is group A strep, just by remembering looking at it and what the different things kind of, that little blue or the red light bulb means it's beta hemolytic. Again, none of this matters to you right now, but this is how much it sticks. After 2 years since I watched this sketch, I still remember everything that's going on in it. The real kind of bolded words on the left there, they're enjoyable, which is totally true. There's a lot of jokes and sarcasm in them, which are great. And it's been proven to save time and increase your retention. Hopefully, I just demonstrated the retention aspect of that. But it's one of those situations where you're in the middle of taking USMLE step one or COMLEX level one, anything like that, level two, whatever, and you get stuck and you can't remember. And this happened to me. I couldn't remember what Neisseria meningitidis, what class it was in the middle of step one. I didn't think back to my lectures. I thought back to the sketch, and that's what got me through it. As you can see here, there is a USMLE step guarantee. So it is guaranteed if you use Sketchy. There's a whole bunch of, fine print and blah, blah, blah. But Sketchy will guarantee you that if you use their product, you will pass the high stakes licensing exams that we have to take. And that's pretty important. That was very obvious during the MCAT and other things like this. I didn't really believe it for like some of the MCAT companies and whatnot. Don't tell them I said that. But for this one, I believe it. You do all the sketches, you're pretty likely to pass. So again, I'm willing, this is recorded, this is on YouTube. I'm willing to put that into writing and speech. So we're going to show you a whole demo of what Sketchy is too. And we have some other stuff to talk about. So that's what Sketchy is. And the next thing is what we're going to do today. So this is an MS1 kind of focused webinar, but again, it works for everyone. And now that I'm kind of thinking of it like on the spot, these are things that I think you should be reminded of every year of medical school, not just MS1. It's most pertinent for MS1 because you're brand new. You don't know what's going on. But I'll tell you, day one of MS2, day one of MS3, and day one of MS4, you probably don't know what's going on either, but you just have these skills now to adapt to that change. And that's what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about common challenges, how to study, mental health, which is incredibly important, and then thinking ahead, which again, as an MS1 or an early MS2, whatnot, not entirely that important, but things you got to think about. Medical school is 4 years per se, but really stuff for your application is 3 years. So you should think of med school as 3 years long in terms of preparing for residency. We're going to do a Q&A, and then there's a pretty sweet offer and giveaway at the end. So we'll get right into it with some common challenges. So the way we're going to do this, just so you all know, Noel, I'm going to lead the beginning portion of this. Noel's going to lead the second half of it, but both of us have talked many of times. We're going to jump in. We're going to share our advice on every different slide. And I try my best as a presenter not to just read off slides. So you likely are all, since you're all in medical school, have heard this before. Likely one of your kind of like maybe older than average deans has talked about the water hose effect during white coat or during your first day of classes, blah, blah, blah. You've heard of this. But the idea is that you will just have so much information just thrown at you. You won't know what to pick out, what is important. And it's going to really feel like you're just constantly chasing the next thing. You won't feel like you'll be able to catch up. and that's normal. I think if we had to choose one thing of this entire webinar, we just want to normalize all of these different things and get rid of the stigma that kind of is associated with this. So you're going to feel like you need to study 24/7. At UC Irvine, the first exam for the MS1s is on the second Monday of school, so less than a week from now. I remember studying 24/7 for that exam. It was like 15 questions. It was worth like 1%. Not really important, but I did because that's what you do in medical school. You feel like you got to learn everything. You might feel a little guilty if you're not studying. That's normal too. Like that is a very normal feeling, and it's not fun to feel that way, but it's very normal. And then kind of in general, med school's not cheap. There's a lot of hidden costs in medical school. And yeah, your tuition might have built in X number of dollars for board exam fees and whatnot, but it's not like it goes into this pretty little bucket. It's just a deposit, something you got to pay. You have credit card bills. You want to fly home. You want to go to a birthday party. You want to do all these other things, right? Life doesn't stop because med school is going on. But this is another portion that I don't think gets kind of thrown in with the water hose effect is life doesn't stop. Like it keeps happening. So these are some common challenges you might feel in MS1, MS2, MS3, and MS4. You're likely going to feel a lot of these multiple times. You will just get better at handling it and hopefully get to a point where you either don't feel it or if you do, it'll inspire you. And that's the goal. It's scary in the beginning, but it gets easier. I promise.
And just to piggyback off of that, great work, Connor. It's just you need to take it step by step, one foot in front of the other. You've heard all these common phrases. Um, because how do you get to your final destination? You got to take the first step. So as long as you do that, all things should be great.
And we can go forward. So some other common challenges. This kind of bleeds into mental health a little bit too, but how do you find time to get that workout in? So let's say you are early MS1, your class starts at 8 a.m., class ends at 3 p.m., and then you study till 8 p.m. Do you want to go to the gym at 8 and then you'll probably be so tired that you're going to go to bed at like 9:30? Do you want to do that? I personally don't. But there's ways, there's times. Something that I really like a strategy is called an Anki walk. So everyone knows kind of Anki, the flashcard app. If you don't, we can talk about it. But I like to go on like an hour-long walk in the evening or in the middle of the day even, and that's when I do my flashcards. So I'm exercising. Yeah, walking, running could be better, but whatever. But I'm also studying at the same time. So I'm outdoors, I'm walking, getting some exercise in, and I'm studying. It's a win-win-win. Like it's a great thing to do. Other people like to just go to the gym, work out. That's a great way to get your stress, like to deal with stress. You're healthy. Leave your phone. Don't do flashcards. Don't study on the treadmill. That's totally fine too. But I would highly urge you to find a time to do some form of physical activity during the week. We all know the American Academy of Family Medicine doctors recommends what 4 days a week of moderate intensity activity. It's 30 minutes, well, whatever that is. It's really true. Just because we tell our patients that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it too. The other thing kind of on that is how do you maintain those relationships that matter to you? Many of you have moved somewhere for medical school. I did. I'm back home now for an away rotation, but it's really weird. I haven't lived at home. I haven't been home for longer than like a week or two for 3 years now. And I'm very family oriented and it's okay. You will get used to it. You will find time. My favorite tip kind of on this one is I love at the end of the day when I'm sitting in Southern California traffic, I will call my mom and I will call my sister. And then don't tell my wife, I will call her third. But I call my family on my drive home. And it's something where I'm not going to be studying on the drive home because I want to listen to music or do something. I just was in the hospital all day and I can talk to my family, and it's great. And I do that weekly, more than weekly, honestly, probably 3, 4 times a week. And it's just a really easy time for me to talk to family. So I love FaceTiming, I love phone calls, I love Zoom, whatever. You'll find your ways to maintain those relationships, and you'll make new relationships too with new friends in medical school. And then lastly, We already hit on this, but life doesn't stop just because you're in med school. Make sure that dentist appointment is scheduled every 6 months and you have it on your calendar and you try not to move it. Car appointments are annoying, they're expensive, blah, blah, blah. But make sure you do it so when you're driving to the hospital, your car doesn't break down. You got to like call your attending and be like, hey, I'm not going to be there. It's a really weird feeling. And then we tell all our patients, right? Go see the doctor if you're feeling unwell, if you want to make changes, want to do things. So again, why would you not go see the doctor if you're feeling unwell or you want to make changes or you want to do things? Go see the doctor. I know it's important. I'm fairly certain it's illegal for them not to allow you to go to the doctor for your own health during medical school. So you can take that time off. Go to the doctor, go to the dentist, do those things. Um, it's worth it. You'll have shiny teeth, you'll be healthy, and your car will run. It'll be worth the time and money, I promise. So those are some other kind of other common challenges.
And some more great advice going through the beginning. How do you find time to get a workout in? As Connor said, just integrating that into your daily routine is something that is going to save you guys a lot of stress in the future. Because not only is exercise a good form of stress relief, and we'll talk about more about the mental health benefits later on, but it also gets your mind off of medicine. Because if you're always thinking about medicine, you're going to stress yourself out. So one of the good ways that I find to integrate medicine and exercise together is doing a couple push-ups while I do my practice questions. So I remember doing 5 push-ups for every question I got wrong. And that really grained in my head, okay, I need to get these right, okay? Because I want to be doing like 50, 60 push-ups. Like, let's actually get these correct. So that's a good resource for you guys to integrate that into your life. Or you can even do running. Do intervals. You can do Anki flashcards on your phone, and when you speed up, you can do your little cardio, and then when you take your breather, you can do a couple of flashcards here and there. The next element, just maintaining those relationships. Having a good study life balance is being intentional. So one of the things you guys will hear is making sure that you get a calendar. So one of the things that I would have to do is sometimes I would forget to even check them on. I have like so many family members that love and support me that I have to make sure I call my grandparents, my mom, my aunts and uncles, because they all want to call me and get me in. But being in the study grind, sometimes I forget. So sometimes I put reminders on my phone to reach out. My best friends in my life, sometimes it was very hard because, as some of you guys know, I moved to a different country. So being intentional about those relationships, I didn't want to let those go. So just making sure that every once in a while, a couple of days, hey, how are you doing? Um, I just want to check in and see how you're doing. I really care and appreciate you, and I actually have an interest in your life. And then the same thing, keeping with the health and fitness, making sure that you get those appointments. And if you're an international student like me, making sure your visa is up to date, making sure nothing gets canceled. You have to be intentional because with anything in life, nothing just happens and falls into place. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know what you're aiming. So just dedicating those times, sometimes maybe in the beginning of the week, an extra 5 to 30 minutes of just knowing what you're going to do that week is going to save you a whole lot of trouble.
I actually really love that tip. I do that same thing every Sunday. I even do it now, even though I know kind of what my schedule kind of is. Every Sunday, I go through my calendar for the week and like, okay, I have a sketchy webinar on Tuesday at 4 PST. I have a meeting at 7 PST. And then I talk to my wife and I'm like, hey, on Tuesday, I'm kind of slammed. I'm gonna need some more support. But Thursday, I'm off. I have the day off, so I can do more of X, Y, and Z. It doesn't matter if you have that internal conversation or if you talk to someone else or whatnot, but always looking a week ahead, a month ahead, whatnot, will serve you well. So you won't forget anything. And I honestly put 1,000 reminders on my phone, on my calendar. I have a to-do list app that also reminds me of things. Like I don't want to forget stuff. And that's just what I do. So it gets easier as time goes on. But I was that person in the beginning of MS3 who wrote down everything the patient told me on a piece of paper to make sure I included it in my notes. I've been challenged recently to try to do that and have conversations with patients without a piece of paper. And just know whatever I remember is what is important. Now, not the easiest thing to do. Still forget things, and that's okay. But it's the same thing. I something I care about a patient who telling me they have a history of cancer is different than me saying, oh darn, it's been 7 months since I've seen the dentist. I really want to go to the dentist. I don't. I really don't want to. So reminders for certain things. We can move on. And we are going to now talk about some study tips, and this is going to blend in to a little showcase of Sketchy as well. So we found this to be really important, and I honestly think this GIF is one of the coolest things. The two creators of Sketchy, I love it. I want a GIF. Maybe we can get Noel and I to have a clapping GIF as well. But it's also GIF and not GIF. I don't care what anyone says. So know your why. You yeah, your why at this stage is pass step one, is pass step two, is pass your classes, is get an A, whatever grading system your school uses or your country uses, whatever. That is the obvious why. And I get that. But there's other whys. Why did your grandparents want you to be a doctor? And then that inspired you to do it. Why was that patient you saw when you were 12 and shadowing still thinking in your brain? Why are those things important? So I really, really, and I think this will come up later in mental health as well. This is an easy way to ground yourself, to think back to why you did this journey when it's not fun at certain times. And Noel and I will both agree with that. It's not fun at a certain time, but you do it and you get through it, and you have to have a reason why. And another thing, this was something that I learned on day one of medical school, and it still sticks with me, hence why I wrote it down here. Learn for your patients, not for your exams. Yeah, obviously there's stuff you have to memorize for exams. You're not immune to that. But if you see on your shadowing experience a patient with heart failure, spend 10 minutes that day. I promise you, and I've had many mentors tell me this, spend 10 minutes that day reading about what you saw. Open up Sketchy, open up Amboss, open up First Aid, open up whatever. Google, I don't care, Google it. Read about heart failure. What does that mean? What does it mean for your patient? What medications are they going to be on? I don't care if you can tell me what losartan is, but you'll have that recognition in third year. And it's like, oh, I read about heart failure, I learned it in pathology, and I've seen a patient with it. So learn for your patients and not for your exams. Again, I am not the type of person, I am incredibly honest. I have done this on exams where I couldn't remember a certain pathology or something like that. And I literally just thought back to a patient I saw and I was like, what meds did we put them on? What did we order? Like, what was this, an MRI? Was it a CT? And that's something, a little more third year relevant, but something that I have done. And I also think something that's important is creating a foundation, aka kind of like pre-studying. So it's been proven I do a lot of medical education research and teaching and stuff like that. This multi-pass method is the way to do it. So early exposure. My lecture today, we're just going to take heart failure, for example. My lecture today is on heart failure. So before I go to that lecture, I'm going to read about it, or I'm going to watch a sketch about it. Then I'm going to go to the lecture or watch the lecture. I'm going to learn it from my professors. And then guess what? I'm going to review that material again, either my notes, another third party system, Sketchy again, whatever. But this multi-pass makes it stick, which is also a great book if you're looking to read things to improve your study habits. Make it stick. Not paid for them, anything like that, but it's actually a pretty quick read and it's a pretty good read as well. So early exposure and multiple avenues of exposure. I'm a big fan of mixed media. I think that's a great way to learn video, audio, visual tips, even tactile too. Various things like that I think are very important.
Yeah, and I love that advice, Connor. I just want to jump in and don't be afraid to mix up how you're studying. Definitely for each block, it's going to require you for different things. Some blocks are going to be more concept heavy, some are going to be more memorization heavy, which, that's where Sketchy comes in and helps you see the big picture for everything. So just don't be afraid to mix and match and just making sure you're seeing material most times. Because looking back, a lot of times, a lot of people, you might hear your class say like, oh, I studied so hard for X, Y, and Z, and I didn't get the grade I want. Well, how many times did you look over the material? And a lot of the times they're not seeing this multi-pass system. So just different outlets and then also seeing the material will help it stick in your brain a lot.
Alrighty. That was awesome. I agree. So some other things that are important for how to study. I'm a huge proponent of this. Whenever new MS1s ask me what should I do this summer before med school, I say three things. Figure out meals that you like to make that are cheap and easy. Figure out your exercise routine and customize your study environment. Yeah, it's expensive. I get that. But that comfy chair that's not the $15 IKEA one, and that second monitor that doesn't have to be 1440p, but it could just be a second monitor, you're gonna study at home most days, likely. Now, for some people, you'll go to school, you'll study in the schools, various things like that. And you can also bring stuff too. You can bring noise canceling headphones. So everything you do at home is applicable. You can bring to school if you want to. But when I started, it was mid-COVID-ish times were weird. Most of us studied at home. So I customized. I have a standing desk to make sure I stand at various times of the day. I have a second monitor. I don't have it now because I'm not at home, but I have a dedicated microphone for Zoom meetings and things like that. Now that's a little extra. And I'll be the first to tell you it's a little extra. But like I have a ring light too. I'm definitely gonna break that bad boy out for interviews and whatnot. There are ways to customize your study environment, essential oils. Make sure I have a mini fridge with your favorite energy drinks next to it. Whatever you want to do, customize your study environment. If you like to study in coffee shops, go to a coffee shop. If you like to study in complete silence, buy those Sony headphones that are ridiculously overpriced but very comfy. Do those things. Trust me, it'll be worth it. Because the better your study environment is, the better you're going to learn the material. It's actually been proven. So, breaks. This is something that I get asked all the time. And I go back and forth on how I feel about this personally. But if you feel you just need a break, if you have studied 14 days in a row, you just took an exam, and for some reason you have material that is new for you the afternoon of that exam, I don't know. I might push that off a day. I might go get a Chipotle burrito. I might go swimming. I might go hang out with friends. That half day of not studying, or that whole day, or however many days you take, probably not going to kill you in the long run. As long as you learn that material, yeah, it might condense your schedule a little bit. But just make sure you are like when you are fatigued, your brain is tired. It is a muscle too. Your brain is a muscle. You you can't push past it at a certain point. And it's okay to say, I'm going to study today from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Once my phone hits 6 p.m., my laptop is done, my Anki app is closed, and I will watch Netflix. I will go work out. That's okay. That is totally fine to do. And it says here, purposeful breaks of even 5 to 10 minutes can significantly increase your concentration and productivity. I'm a huge Pomodoro method fan. I do 25 on and 5 off. And that's just my personal strategy. I do it all the time. And I think it's really helpful. Also, rewards. If you are lucky enough to live near a Trader Joe's, the dark chocolate peanut butter cups from Trader Joe's are literally the reason why I passed exams. Like eating a few as a reward. I love Spindrift too. Please sponsor me, Spindrift. That same thing. Just have mini rewards or something like that to help get through it. Proven to work. And this just kind of goes back on to what we were talking about. The graph on the left and same thing. You can do this into intervals. So morning, afternoon, evening. You can aim for an hour to 3 hours. Make sure you say, I'm going to study. After an hour, don't pull out your phone and end up on TikTok for 30 minutes. You're going to do it, but try not to. And then just keep going. If you feel you're at hour 2 and you feel great, push yourself to an hour 3 and just see how you feel. It is not sustainable to study. I'm honestly even going to say to study like 10 hours a day. I don't think that's sustainable to do that every day. Now, there are certain days before an exam where you're going to cram and blah, blah, blah. That's a different story. But if you're consistently studying 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single day, you will resent medical school and you will resent the training. And it at a certain point, as this graph shows, it's not worth it. The cost is worse than the benefits. It's just not the right thing to do.
Yeah, and just going through a little bit of my perspective on study tips as well, piggyback off Connor. Romanticize your life. I think that's one of the biggest proponents you guys can be doing that will help you, especially with studying and doing a studying environment. So lots of times you'll see like these meta influencers go on and be like, oh, I went here to this fancy place and I like ordered this matcha tea latte, blah, blah. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can fall on a budget. If you have the funds, go ahead and do that. But you can just go to Starbucks, get yourself a little croissant, or you could just do it at home, make your own coffee. I know one of my biggest proponents is I like to make my black tea with honey and stir it, and then I go ahead and then have a Pop-Tart. Not the fanciest thing in the morning, but it's something that I like to do. And just having that ritual and what makes you comfortable will make studying so much more enjoyable. Also finding that perfect environment for you. So if you are in an environment, I know sometimes we don't have the best environments for you live with roommates or friends that are kind of loud. Just try to remove yourself and go to your local library. It's be a good space or a good coffee shop or just a local park. Sit down and study there. It's going to be a lot better for you in the long run. Going through studying, if you're going to be taking breaks, definitely take them when you feel like it. As it says, don't try to push yourself, don't try to go through fatigue, because that's just going to create feelings of frustration. And also, with that feelings of frustration, your memory retention is going to go down, and you're not going to feel like studying. And it's going to feel like a chore. And no one wants to do chores, realistically. So just making sure and listening to your body and feeling when you need to take a break, just take that break. And, and but on the flip side, if you're studying and you feel like you need to keep it going, you have a test going up, go ahead and do it. Or if you're studying for 1 hour and you do the Pomodoro technique and you feel like you can do a little bit more, throw an extra 30 minutes. Just find your perfect medium because every medium for different people is going to be different. And you don't necessarily need to do someone else's Pomodoro style or someone else's studying material or someone else's style. So just keep that in mind.
All solid and wonderful tips that
And
I
then we can go to the next slide.
alrighty. Uh Brenna, I believe I am taking over the screen share at this point. All right, that worked out perfect. So we're going to show you a lesson real quick, and we have more tips. The more important section, everything I just said is really boring. I'm going to say it's important too, but it's really boring. Noelle is going to lead us on a super important discussion about mental health here shortly, but we want to show you this real quick. So this is what Sketchy looks like. Ignore mine. I was reviewing some stuff earlier. This is a sad one to have to review, malignant bone tumors, but still, this is how Sketchy is broken down. And there's not meant to be audio right now. We're just going to click through some stuff. Now, I understand the way at my school is we learn microbiology in second year. Some of your schools, you're going to learn microbiology in first year. There's all these other things, immunology, biochem, biostatistics, anatomy, pathophys, all this other stuff. That's not the clerkship material, but this is all first and second year. For the purpose of this, I want to show you one of my favorite sketches, which you might not watch until second year, but I think it's worth watching or worth learning about now. So I'm going to go into bacteria. And this was, as you saw, this was the photo from the beginning of the sketch, group A strep right here. But we're going to go to the goldenrod of Staph aureus here real quick. And let me make sure I go back because I was reviewing. So again, we're not actually going to watch this full lesson, but I want to click through it and kind of show you. And again, shout out, Sketchy just changed all of this. This is a brand new format. I absolutely love how they do it. It looks beautiful. And so we're in lesson one. It's one video, it's 5 questions, and there's 6 total modules. So it's kind of module based now. We go here. Here is the video. I always say this on every webinar. I love kind of all the voices on Sketchy are great, but there are some incredible kind of voices from the creators of Sketchy in these early videos that I still love. And they give you a lesson summary too. So you can watch the video. I typically watch the video at 1.5 times speed. And then as soon as I'm done watching that video, I utilize this simple picture right here, which is exactly what we're going to do together. And so we're just gonna, this is the whole picture with everything with the symbols, but just so you get the point, I'm gonna show you all the symbols down here. So the golden staff is Staph aureus. Staph is known to be gold. It looks gold on stains. So here's your gold staff for Staph aureus. So whenever you see this staff, the staff, it means Staph aureus is involved. Purple in here stands for gram positive. Now, maybe this just sounds like another language to you. That's okay. Microbiology is like a completely different language. But when you remember this sketch and you flash back to this photo when you're on an exam, there's so many purple hues that it's going to remind you that this is gram positive. Continuing on, I'm not going to talk through every single one of these, but a CAT for catalase enzyme. This one is super important. Everyone cares that Staph aureus is coagulase positive or coag positive. This is this is how you distinguish it from other similar things. So here's the coagulation. The beta light bulb we talked about earlier. And again, you saw that in a different sketch on a different bacteria. Here it is again. They reuse symbols. And the more you learn the symbols, the more you remember it from each of the various sketches. Um, we get into here. Guess what? Staph aureus is common with the nose. It's a rock that looks like a nose. Who would have ever thought to do that? Obviously, Sketchy did, but this is pretty smart. Um, again, they make a camel look hilarious. And there's just jokes and everything during this video too to help you remember it. Um, Kind of getting down in here, the fishbone I really like stands for osteomyelitis, an infection of the bone. It can burn you. So Staph aureus makes a toxin that can burn you. This guy looks very warm. Um, Moving on, this rapid onset nausea. Staph aureus creates a toxin that causes very rapid onset food poisoning. This is why you don't eat left out potato salad or things like that at parties. Just don't touch it. You will also learn from watching Sketchy to not reheat rice. Also a poor decision. Um, Again, see the mayo comes here. There's mayo and meat hanging off here, and that's where you're gonna get it. Um, and some other stuff, and then this gets into the antibiotics. So I know we didn't actually watch the video. It's a little bit long for this webinar, but with that being said, on double speed and all these kind of things, they're actually really short. This Staph aureus at most med schools will probably take 45 minutes for them to lecture you about. I can learn all of the board important material for this. And if I click video right here, and it's obviously not going to play in 10 minutes and 48 seconds, and you can put it on double speed, and now you've learned everything about this in 5 minutes. You can't really beat that. A 45-minute lecture condensed down into 5 minutes, you can't really save more time than that. And some other things. They have a question bank too. So what enzyme, this is going to be really odd if I get this wrong, converts, causes conversion of fibrinogen to fibrin. I really hope it's coagulase, but I might be wrong here. It might be catalase. Sweet. All right, I was right. This is good. But again, there's a question bank, and they give you kind of answers too. Like they give you explanations. We can scroll through all here. There's questions for the videos, and then here is the lesson. And they have cool little symbols. So again, this is my method. I watch the video on double speed. I go back, I click through the symbols, I do the questions, and then I come back and review this before the exam. Now, again, I just want to show real quickly, again, Sketchy just remastered all of this. So here's all of the different kind of units and whatnot. And when they remastered it, some of the data reset up here. I've done more than this, I promise. But you can go through and go into different areas. You can bookmark different things. There's new clinical content. There's OMM content, all of this type of stuff. I go to farm. There's tons of units in here. Each one of the units has like 20 or 30 lessons. It's all encompassing. And they made it look pretty and brand new. There's quiz questions, there's new clinical content. You're obviously here. You don't need me to share more about Sketchy, but that's what it looks like. And that's how we use it. Noel and I have similar but different methods to how we use Sketchy. And I'm sure everyone does. But at the end of the day, watching the video, it's pretty much your go-to.
Now, getting into self-doubt, mental health for you guys. Mental health is something that is very important and something that you guys should really focus on as you are in medical school. You might have heard a lot of times people say that you need to dedicate your life to medicine. Well, you're not just a medical student. You need to be more than that because you don't want to be sacrificing everything. Yes, you should do that for your patient, but you shouldn't do it at the cost of yourself. It's a very serious topic that we need to really put in the forefront of our minds. And so don't be afraid. If you need to take a day off, as we spoke about earlier, from studying, go ahead and do that. If you need to call your best friend, you need to call your mom, X, Y, and Z, go ahead and do that because what's important is you. And we want to see you guys all get to the finish line. And so a big component of mental health is not only your own mental health, but how you feel about yourself. So self-doubt. A lot of times the students come to me with questions about, I don't know if I can actually do this, especially coming from an IMG background. That's something that we get told all the time. We have this like Suedo feeling like, do I actually deserve to be here? And yes, you are a medical student. You got the acceptance, no matter what your journey looked like, you got here and you are a medical student. Wear that with a badge of honor. I don't care what school you go to, where you go to. Um, just honor and respect yourself enough and be present in what you are and where you're going. And as you go through, if you feel like you have imposter syndrome, if you feel like you're not good enough, that will come with you studying as you get through and you take every single day for what it is. So, a famous quote that I like to talk about is one from Kobe Bryant, one of my heroes. I'm from Palm Springs, California area. Grew up watching him, loved all of his stuff. He says this quote on confidence. The confidence comes from preparation. When the game's on the line, I'm not asking myself to do something that I haven't done 1,000 times before. If in the moments it looks like I'm ice cold and not nervous, it's because I've done it 1,000 times before. So what's one more time? So as you guys are studying and putting in that hours and you're building up this mental fortitude, you're going to feel more confident. You're going to not feel like an imposter. You're not going to feel like you're self-doubting yourself because you put in the work, you put in the time. So just honor your studies, put in the work, and you will fortify your mind to be this great doctor and this great person that loves yourself and that knows that you belong here in medical school. And another thing that I want to talk about is a lot of students, when they go in, they hear, oh, this person had a 5.0 coming in. This person went to Harvard. You never, ever want to compare yourself to someone else. Remember, all of us are unique human beings, and we all got to this journey on our own different routes and our own different curve. You don't need to compare someone else's level 50 to your level 0 because I'm telling you, when you go in, and especially since a lot of you guys are MS1s, you may have already started, you may have not started. Some of your classmates have years of experience in healthcare. Some of them will be able to name out every single drug because they've had pharmacy experience. Some might have experience as nurses, but just know that there's going to come a point in time that the playing field is going to even. Not everyone can know everything. That's why you guys are in school. And as you guys are going through, you're going to notice that they might be cocky and feel like they walk around, they know everything, but there's going to be a time when they don't know stuff. So just put in that dedicated work and you guys will do just fine.
The really only thing to add is I guarantee you that Kobe Bryant quote, Noel probably feels that way. Doing a thoracentesis as a first year, he's going to do it again during internal medicine rotation here shortly. Guarantee you he feels more confident the second time around, has seen it before, has done it before. Do they just, you have to be supervised and everything like that. But there's a reason why med students fix lacerations on their own and various things like that, because you've done 20 of them, you've done 30 of them, and that confidence just grows from that time. And I remember, like a very quick anecdote, I remember suturing in the operating room. The patient's asleep. There's no one watching me. The attending's gone. The resident is just teaching me, and my hand is just shaking as I'm doing this. I almost feel more comfortable suturing an awake person now because I've done it so many times. Like I had sutured before that experience. I knew what I was doing, but it was just new. And everything in medicine is going to be new for you. Take a suturing experience to doing practice questions. Those first 100 practice questions you do will feel a lot different than the last 100 questions you do. So definitely, like it says here, confidence is from preparation, and this basketball, medicine, everything like that, it's all the same.
And then the next topic, dealing with intimidation and failure. So one of the biggest things that you might encounter is students going in thinking, like, oh, I got a 5.0. Go in, don't study for their first medical school exam, and they fail. You never want to take that to heart. One thing that happens to you, one bad exam, one bad quiz doesn't define who you are. As I say, when it gets cloudy on a sunny day, the clouds are there to just go by and leave. They're not going to stay there forever like the sun. So don't let this one test, this one gray cloud ruin your whole day. Try to get outside your own movie, go out for a walk, really see that the life still goes by. Um, there's still going to be people working in fast food. There's still going to be people Ubering you to X, Y, and Z. Your parents are still alive. The world hasn't fallen apart. Just go back, recollect your thoughts, express yourself, and then just see what went wrong if you ever deal with failure. Intimidation, on the intimidation side, be honest. You're going to encounter gunners in med school. You're going to encounter liars. You're going to encounter people who threaten you, give you false knowledge occasionally. Don't let that intimidate you. You got here because of who you are. Don't let these other med students who love to complain and exaggerate what's going on, especially higher up, sometimes they're just like, oh, this professor or this doctor is so hard, you're never going to pass, or most people fail. Take it with a grain of salt because they take their own personal experience and try to project it on you. Try to figure out what works for you and what doesn't, and don't let anyone like shake who you are because again, you put in a tremendous amount of work just to be here. So you deserve to be a medical student. And if you need some time, we're going to go into our next topic, which is therapy. You should have some mental support on your campus, or you can get a private therapist. I know personally, I have my own private therapist that I go to occasionally. Don't feel afraid to go. There's this stigma out there still that sometimes when you go to therapy, that you're crazy, you can't actually help your patients. If you go to therapy, no. We want you to take care of yourself because taking care of yourself is the most important thing so that you can take care of others. So don't be afraid to reach out if you need that.
5 years ago, uh, Noel probably wouldn't have said, "Hey, I'm on this webinar, it's being recorded, whatnot. I go to therapy." Medicine has changed. It is becoming a safer place. It is becoming easier to talk about these struggles that we all go through, just no one wants to talk about it. So that person who tells you that they aced the first exam, maybe they didn't, and they will go home and they will struggle with that. You never know what someone is dealing with on the inside. And I just want to advocate that, yeah, medicine has ways to go. There are things that need to stop happening, and there are things that need to get better, but it's improving. Again, 5 years ago, you wouldn't be able to openly talk about this in the medical world. This was taboo, and you wouldn't be able to talk about this, but we can now. So positive change is coming for sure.
And then, so thinking ahead, this is a very important concept. We want you guys to also, as you're starting your first year of medical school, to just think ahead, but not too far ahead. Don't put yourself into a position to where you lay the foundation, you have everything concrete, and you're just like, oh, I have my heart set on this. I'm always going to do this. I don't want to do anything else. You want to make sure when you're going forward through your preclinical years, you're keeping an open mind. So as you guys are getting in, make sure that you are getting your routine down as we talked about beforehand, and then maybe opening yourself up to other opportunities that come along. You're going to hear people shadowing doctors. You can shadow your own doctors at home. That's a great time to get your feet wet and to see what you actually like. So I'm a big advocate. Shadowing internal medicine or learning about internal medicine has a lot of different subspecialties that you can go through so that you can just branch out. Because a lot of people don't know there is so many specialties out there, so many subspecialties that you guys are going to be able to expose yourself to. You just have to put yourself out there. But obviously, caveat, make sure that you get your routine done first. Extracurriculars, all those things that you love to do in college and undergrad, you don't have to throw those away when you start medical school. You guys can still keep doing that. So if you like to play a musical instrument. You like to do these things for stress relieving. Some people like to knit, some like to croquet. You guys can still do that. Just make sure you're being intentional and allowing yourself to be able to do those. I know Connor did a sports, I believe, competition. So if you have extra time, you're doing well, go ahead and get out and do those things. I know for my school, we do have competitions as well. I like doing those, or hopping onto a basketball team, or going on to pickleball or intramurals is really, really nice. So try to get those under your belt. And if you have additional time, you can also do research. Consider doing research as your interest. I know it's a long journey that you guys can do. That's not something that you guys want to just hop on as an MS3. You definitely can, but just know you want to put your due diligence and actually figure out what most interests you. Because sometimes people get onto research groups that they're just like, I actually don't have any interest in this. So just give yourself the time and energy to actually look at what's out there, what you want to do. And sometimes some research you can do during the summer between your MS1 and MS2 years, it will actually pay you. So just looking at those different opportunities to get yourself, elevate from a cup of noodles to maybe a steak with that extra income while you're in medical school. That might be something that interests you. So the more time you guys are able to be intentional about your studies, it will free up time for you to shadow, do extracurriculars, and actually free up a lot more time for you in the future. So just be intentional with everything you do.
And I keep wanting to say that this is the most important thing. And I know I've said that like 3 times, but this is actually a good thing because we made this presentation pretty well that everything's really high yield. That yellow box there in the bottom left of the screen there, I really would encourage you to hold off on these type of things. Shadowing, extracurriculars, crazy vacations, blah, 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 until you feel comfortable with your study plan. Now, caveat, will you ever feel fully comfortable? Plus or minus. But you shouldn't fail 3, 4 exams and then start signing up for 6 different board positions. That might be a bad idea. Typically, what I tell people is around January, December, whatnot of your first year, you probably have a better idea of how you study and what your grades are looking like. Then you can kind of start transitioning into some more kind of CV based things, some shadowings, maybe on the internal medicine interest group board, running events, doing a research project, things like that. So you don't need to do that today. You don't need to do this next month. But maybe, Thanksgiving, December time, January time, that's probably when I would probably start thinking of jumping into these things more seriously. But again, grades come first. I don't care if you are the president of 7 board groups. If you have like 4 med school failures, that means more to people than those groups do. So always focus on your grades. The pre-med lifestyle is not that fun and it's not great. Part of it does remain in med school as much as I wish it didn't. It's not as crazy, it's not as competitive, it's not as difficult. But again, grades come first. Yeah. The stupid quote, which I don't think is true at all, that pain is temporary, but GPA is forever. Not entirely correct, but there's like a hint of truth in that one. So I would never advocate for that, but it is kind of true. Like you're applying for your first doctor job. I'm applying for my first doctor job, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what did I get on that first biochem exam? Whatnot? Not really. But again, things to think about.
And just to like add on, grades are super important because when you see your first patient, especially during like residency or XYZ by yourself, they're not going to care that you are president of a certain club. They're going to care, can you help me? That's the main focus. So just going back to your why, remember that you're doing this because you're handling someone's life. That's the most precious thing that you can do, or someone to entrust you with. So make sure you're really being serious about this and taking this into consideration that, you know, one wrong move, you might die. Not necessarily, but that could potentially happen. So just keep that in your mind. So also thinking ahead, study strategies. We talked about this a little bit before, but don't be afraid to mix different styles up. You don't want to stay too rigid, especially if you are not passing exams or you are getting like a fail. Try changing things up because what's going on is that there's something wrong with your actual studying method. So if you are trying to do like MSK, it's going to be a lot of like memorization. If you're not familiar with MSK, you're going to have to do flashcards, 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 what I did for myself. But then when you're going to more physiology based, you got to see the big picture, especially with these different biochemical pathways. You're not going to be able to just memorize like, oh, this is what glycogen phosphorylase does. This only does that. If you're able to see what actual phosphorylase does, it's going to be able to how other different pathways, and you'll be able to pick up on the material a lot faster. So don't be afraid of that. And then for your clinical years, you should do and learn all that you can in network and create a solid foundation of knowledge to apply to rotation. This is something that's super critical with everything that you do. So sorry about that, guys. So with everything that you do and you learn, you can network with other individuals. Actually, Connor, can you take it really quick?
Yeah, so this is one of those things where again we're two students in our clinical years, but again this is very important. So I have to know if Staph aureus is something I need to consider about this person's cellulitis, because I need to add maybe we're in an area where there's a lot of resistance, and now we have something like MRSA. I need to add vancomycin, and that doctor could ask me what is vancomycin. This is a conversation I had yesterday, of what medications to choose and whatnot. Those are the questions you will get asked. And I was only able to do it because I took pharmacology, microbiology, blah, blah, blah. I use Sketchy. I use those classes to apply to that. And I just implore you, during your clinical years to do and learn all you can. If your resident asks you to go do something, you should say yes, for the most part. If they want you to help with the procedure, you should say yes. I don't care how sweaty you are, how nervous you are, blah, blah, blah. If you get a chance to help with the procedure or something like that, it'll end up in your evaluations. It'll make you be like, I actually want to do procedures. Maybe I should be a surgeon or an emergency medicine doctor. Shout out to emergency medicine. But maybe you hate procedures. Welcome to psychiatry. Various things like that. So we want you just big picture overview to think ahead. But this is something you could revisit in January or so. Nothing you need to worry about now, but I just want to promise you that all those things that you learned from Sketchy during first and second year of med school come back, and they're important to know.
I think that was great. Good though. Thanks for taking over, Connor. And now we're going to open it up for questions and Q&A.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you both. Feel free to drop any questions either in the chat, or I think there's like a Q&A feature. But while we let you all think on any questions, I'll show you our lovely offer. So we are running our back to school sale, 25% off. You can use this code BTS 2024 until August 29th. It is going to be for only new and expired accounts. So definitely encourage you to just try Sketchy out if you're interested in it. We have a 7-day free trial, so you can cancel after the 7 days, even if you're not interested in it, but at least you kind of get in there, test out some videos, some lessons, see those quiz questions, see those symbol explorers, and see if it's honestly for you. So yeah, definitely grab this code. It's also plastered all over our website. So for some reason, if you happen to forget this code, you'll be able to find it on our website. And I am now going to pull a winner for our 6-month Sketchy sub. So give me one moment.
And yeah, while we'll stick around, feel free to drop questions in the Q&A portion. I really like that feature on Zoom. So drop questions for Noel and I. I think we have very different experiences. We're from similar areas in California, but much different med school experiences. And Noel has a lot of advice to offer that I personally don't have that perspective of. And that's why I love doing stuff like this, is everyone from medicine comes from a different area and a different background. And everyone has the same goal. And as long as you work well together and get to know each other, you can make a lot of lifelong friendships in this field for sure.
think there was one, Connor. So it says, thanks for the great talk. Could you guys elaborate further into how you guys incorporate Sketchy into your study routine? Do you immediately Sketchy first or use other videos and then use Sketchy to reinforce? Yeah, I can start and then Connor, you can pick up afterwards. I use Sketchy. So as an MS1, I had Sketchy right off the bat because I used it for the MCAT and my pre-med experience. So what I would go ahead and do is you get a syllabus. You should know what you're seeing per topic per day. Or if you don't have one, go ahead and ask your professors for what you're going to be talking about before the next day. Sketchy's library is so intense that I'm sure there's going to be a video, and I was able to match those videos up before the lecture. So what I would go ahead and do is watch the video, make sure I had some sort of context before going in, and that would be my first pass because we talked about this multi-pass system. Then I would go to class with questions if I didn't understand anything, or the topic wasn't fully covered and Sketchy only had a partially of the video. I'd learn what I needed there, go back to Sketchy, reinforce those habits. And so it'd be my third pass of the material. Then I'd make questions on it, use Anki, and finally do questions on it. So about a 3 to 5 pass system.
Yeah, and I dropped my response in the chat for everyone to read if you would like. But same exact thing. I agree with Noel. I use Sketchy as my first pass, so I watch it before the lecture if I can, and I just use the lecture to supplement. Which I know my med school would not be happy hearing that, but that's what the majority of us do. Sketchy's short, it's memorable, it has a lot of great content. And anything else that might be important for that exam or something like that, I will pick up in lecture. But Sketchy gives me that foundation that I need. And I almost always, before an exam, not watch all the sketches again. I will click through the symbols again. And I really like that as kind of like a final reminder before the exam.
And one more throwaway for here, you guys. So when you're doing it, as you're getting more, Sketchy has great books. I'll show you guys one that I pulled out here for pathology as well as micro and farm. You can also get those through Sketchy and just take those to class. Put notes on them as well as do your notes from the videos on them. It's a good physical copy to have, and another modality for you to actually memorize the material. So just having that as another source, another way to practice helps a ton.
Amazing. I actually think we've discontinued, sadly, our sketchy workbooks. I know we get a lot of requests actually to print some more. But I think you have one of our probably last relics of our physical copies. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Great.
Anyway, I dropped in the chat, but Ashley, you are our giveaway winner, so I'll reach out and get you all set up with your account. And I appreciate all of you sticking around to answer some questions and learn from our amazing sketchy ambassadors. Yeah, really PFDs, PDFs, maybe. Anyway, if there isn't any more questions, we'll close it out. And I appreciate all of you. All right. Thanks, everyone.